"Hello, darling, your crazy mother won't let us in. We're on the stairs with our things." Macy's voice pierced through the hallway like a knife. She was yelling into her phone, the words ricocheting off the walls outside my apartment. I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I just stood there in the kitchen holding my coffee with both hands. I knew she'd say something like that. The banging came next. First the flat palm against the wood, then the elbow, then something, maybe a shoe, slammed into the door. "Thalia, open up. We have the kids with us." I walked slowly to the peephole. 4 children, all under 10, clutching juice bottles and tablets, dazed and blinking in the hallway light. Macy stood beside them with a scowl on her face and a phone still pressed to her ear. 6 suitcases stacked behind them, blocking the stairwell. She hadn't called. She hadn't texted. They were supposed to visit next month. 2 nights max. But from the look of things, this wasn't a visit. This was a move-in. "She changed the lock," Macy shouted, now turning her back toward the door as if I wasn't standing a foot away on the other side. "Your mother actually changed the lock without telling us I had. 2 weeks ago, after the last time they left without warning, along with my groceries, my spare bedding, and 4 months of patience. I never gave them the new key. Aiden had called me unpredictable when I brought it up. Said Macy was trying her best and the kids needed a soft place to land. But I was still recovering from gallbladder surgery. I hadn't even been cleared to drive. And somehow I was the one expected to give up my bedroom and sleep on the couch again. I backed away from the door slowly. Outside, Macy's voice rose louder. She threatened to call the police. She said I was making a scene. One of the kids started crying. Another sat on a suitcase, bored. I didn't answer. I just walked back into the kitchen and poured the rest of my coffee down the sink. They'd made their choice, and I had made mine. It started with 2 weeks. That's what they said. "Just 2 weeks, Mom. We'll be out before you even feel better." Aiden had held my hand at the hospital. Macy stood behind him, already scrolling through her phone, already halfway out the door. I believed them. I wanted to. I had just gotten home from surgery. My body sore, my voice weaker than I liked. I thought it would be nice to have the kids around, even if it was just for a while. I didn't know then that they'd unpack all their bags, fill my refrigerator with food I didn't eat, and lay claim to my bed without asking. Macy said it was better for the kids if she and Aiden had the room. "You can rest better on the couch anyway, right? No stairs." She smiled like she was doing me a favor. That first night, I slept with a blanket too small and a pillow that smelled like antiseptic. I told myself it was temporary. But 2 weeks became 3, then 5, then 12. They said the new lease fell through, said they were looking into options. Meanwhile, my electricity bill doubled and my savings started slipping into grocery bags filled with snacks and toys and specialty oat milk no one finished. The worst part wasn't the space. It was the silence. The way Macy started answering my phone. The way Aiden used my laptop without asking. The way my house started to shift around them. One afternoon, I came home from a doctor's appointment to find Macy in the kitchen barefoot, pulling everything from my cabinets. She had her AirPods in, humming along to something, reorganizing my plates into categories I didn't recognize. "I'm just helping," she said brightly, when she noticed me standing there. "Your system didn't really make sense." I nodded. I didn't argue. But I spent that evening searching online for locksmiths. When they finally left after 5 months, I cried in the shower for an hour. I told no one. I just made a list in my yellow binder: replace lock. Keep receipt. I still have the old key. It never really fit. Not in the door. Not in the life they expected me to give up. They said it was temporary, just until their lease started. Aiden repeated it so many times, I almost believed it, like a line rehearsed more than felt. I made coffee in the mornings with Macy behind me, scrolling her phone in my kitchen, like she owned the light coming through the windows. The kids used my hallway as a racetrack. I stayed quiet, telling myself they'd be gone by next month. Then, one evening, I needed a photo. Something for a church bulletin. A fundraiser for the library. I opened my laptop just for 5 minutes just to find the file. But a browser window was still open. Macy hadn't logged out. It wasn't private. It wasn't even hidden. Their entire house was listed on 2 vacation rental sites, photos, dates, cheerful language, cozy 3-bedroom with local charm, walkable to downtown. Booked solid. Week after week. $1, $500 a month easy. They hadn't told me because they knew. They knew I wouldn't have said yes to all of it, the pretending, the lies, the invasion. I printed the listing and set it on the table. Didn't say a word until dinner. We were halfway through microwaved pasta when I slid the page across to Aiden. He glanced down, then back at me. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. We're just trying to get ahead, Macy said, not meeting my eyes. By living here for free, we're family, Aiden said, as if that settled it. What's the big deal? That sentence rang in my ears for days. What's the big deal? The big deal was that I'd skipped a specialist appointment to make room in my schedule for babysitting, that I'd paid for their gas when their card bounced, that I'd let myself be erased in my own house because I didn't want to be called difficult. I didn't argue that night. I just nodded. Quiet. The next morning, I made a second list in my binder check deed. Contact attorney. They thought they were getting ahead. I was finally catching up. The first time Macy asked for the card, she said it was for a pharmacy run. One of the kids had a rash. Something urgent. I handed it over without thinking. I was still in my robe, half awake from a night on the couch with my back aching. She said she'd be quick. She wasn't. She came home 2 hours later with shopping bags. A small pharmacy bag, yes, but also shoes, makeup, a Bluetooth speaker. She waved it all off. There was a sale. And I figured since we're watching the kids, it balances out. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to fight. I told myself it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Over the next 6 months, the charges piled up slow at first. Gas. Groceries. Then they turned Boulder furniture concert tickets, a high chair I never saw. I kept waiting for her to mention it. Waiting for Aiden to notice. Waiting for someone to acknowledge that the card I used for prescriptions and utilities had become their second wallet. They never did. I found out the total on a quiet Wednesday afternoon. I had logged in to pay my power bill and saw the red flag, $4.287.13. Pending. I printed the statement, underlined each charge with a red pen, then closed the laptop. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat very still at the kitchen table and listened to the dishwasher run. I didn't call the bank, didn't file a dispute. That would have meant confrontation. And I was still recovering, still trying to believe that what they were doing wasn't theft, just thoughtlessness. I didn't tell Evelyn either. She would have pressed me to take action to fight back. Instead, I opened my yellow binder. I flipped to the back, wrote 2 lines in thick black ink, lock account, change locks. Then I picked up the phone and canceled my follow-up appointment for the week. My legs were swollen again. The nurse asked if I wanted to reschedule. I said I'd call back. I didn't. That night, I slept in the recliner with the folder in my lap and the front door double locked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw them out or make a scene. That wasn't my way. Instead, I called my lawyer. His name was Jonah Brenner, an old friend of Robert's, the kind of man who spoke softly, but remembered every detail. I brought him the binder, every receipt, every charge, every broken promise printed and tucked neatly into its plastic sleeves. He didn't ask many questions. He'd seen the pattern before. We sat in his office while he explained the structure, a living trust airtight with clear inheritance terms and entry permissions. I wouldn't lose ownership, but the language would be very specific. No one Not Aiden or Macy or anyone else could enter my apartment or inherit it unless they met defined conditions. Active, respectful, reciprocal relationship. Jonah paused, then asked, "Do you want them to know now?" I shook my head. "They'll find out if they need to." It took one signature and a single envelope. He handed me the original to keep in the binder. The rest he filed. I walked home in the cold. Not angry, not triumphant. Just done. There's a sound people expect when someone draws a line, yelling doors, slamming big declarations. But not all boundaries are loud. Some doors close without a sound. When I got home, I boiled water and made coffee. Not for company, not for anyone but myself. I sat on the edge of my bed, and read the new clause twice. It was clear, legal, permanent. Aiden's name was no longer attached to the property. Not unless he changed. Not unless I agreed. I thought about telling Evelyn, but something in me wanted to hold this one close. For once, it felt good to keep the power quiet. Macy still hadn't said a word about the card. Aiden hadn't asked how I was sleeping. They thought I was just sitting still waiting for another visit. They didn't know I'd already moved the game board, and I wasn't playing their rules anymore. The coffee had just finished brewing. I could hear the final hiss from the machine as I pulled my robe tighter and moved to the kitchen. I wasn't rushing. I had nowhere to be. It was a Tuesday. I had circled it on the calendar, no appointments, no errands, just time to read, maybe trim the basil on the windowsill. I glanced at the date again, just to be sure. There was nothing on the schedule that involved Macy. No text, no call, no warning. I poured the coffee slowly. Black, then just a splash of cream. I stirred it once, then stood by the window and took my first sip. That's when I heard it, the thud of feet on the stairwell. A suitcase being dropped. A child crying. And then her voice, sharp, theatrical, cutting through the walls. "She's doing this on purpose. I swear your mother is completely unstable. She changed the locks without telling anyone." Another slam. A fist on the door. I didn't flinch. I walked to the counter, added another pinch of sugar, and stirred again. Outside, Macy's voice rose. "We have the kids. She knows that. Who locks their own grandchildren out of the house?" I took another sip. They were making a scene. Not just for Aiden on the phone, but for the neighbors. Macy's voice carried. That wasn't an accident. She wanted to be overheard. She wanted to be pitied, but the only thing I felt was stillness. I had told them last time clearly that next time there would be no next time. No more surprise visits, no more dropping the kids off with excuses, no more guilt disguised as affection. I walked to the table, set my coffee down, and opened the yellow binder. I flipped past the page with the trust, past the printouts of charges. I pulled out a new page. Across the top, I wrote, Tuesday 9:08 a.m. Macy arrived unannounced, with luggage. 4 children. I didn't write what she said. I didn't need to. Her voice was still echoing through the hallway when the doorbell rang again. By noon, the pounding had stopped, the shouting too. The hallway went quiet for the first time all morning. I had just finished washing my coffee mug when I heard a soft knock, 2 taps, and a pause. Only one person ever knocked like that, Evelyn. She stepped inside holding a plastic container and that sly half-smile she wore when something petty was happening outside her door. "Banana muffins," she said, placing them on the counter. "Still warm." I nodded. "You didn't have to." She waved it off. "They're still out there, you know." Making quite the scene. I didn't ask what she meant. I knew. Evelyn peeked through the blinds. "Your daughter-in-law has a flair for drama. She's got 2 of the kids stretched out like they're refugees and the other 2 sitting on the suitcases. One of them keeps trying to eat string cheese that melted in the sun." I smiled, but I didn't laugh. "Let them," I said. Evelyn grinned. "Already did. She left an hour later with a promise to take care of something. I assumed she meant paperwork or HOA complaints. I didn't ask. Evelyn had a clipboard, and when Evelyn had a clipboard, things tended to get handled. By late afternoon, a building-wide notice had gone up in the lobby. Effective immediately. No unauthorized tenants. No extended guests. Violators subject to fines and lease termination. It was firm, legal, clear. Macy read it aloud in the hallway like she couldn't believe her eyes. Is this a joke? She yelled to no one, then louder to the building. Is this directed at us? She turned to the camera she hadn't realized was filming. One of the younger tenants, a college student from upstairs, had caught the entire tantrum on their phone. The fake tears, the accusations, the part where Macy shouted, "She's just bitter and old and lonely." Later that video would circulate in the building group chat. Someone would set it to music, but I didn't watch it. I just folded my laundry, turned off my phone, and sat down to dinner. The call from Aiden came that night. The call came at 9:41 p.m. I was at my desk sorting through tax forms I hadn't touched since February. I didn't recognize the number. At first he'd used Macy's phone again. I let it ring once more before I picked up. "Mom," he said, "you've embarrassed us." His voice wasn't angry, not exactly, just tight. Wounded in the way people sound when they realize they've lost control, not when they've actually been hurt. The kids are crying. They don't understand why Grandma won't open the door. I didn't answer right away. I slid the manila envelope to the side, closed the folder, and reached for my glasses. He kept going. "You've gone too far, you know that, posting signs." Letting Evelyn interfere. "That stupid video, I didn't post anything," I said calmly. "Well, you let it happen. I warned you last time." He paused. "What I told you the next time you showed up unannounced, I wouldn't open the door." "Jesus, Mom. You said I was being difficult." I continued. "All I did was stop being easy." Another silence. Not dead air, just the kind of pause where someone's about to say something cruel, but doesn't know if they can still get away with it. "You've changed," he muttered. "I had to. She's your daughter-in-law." "We're your grandchildren." "No," I said. "You're grown adults who made decisions." I just stopped erasing myself to cushion the consequences. I could hear Macy in the background, sharp, muttering something, probably telling him to hang up, probably already opening her social media apps to spin another story. Aiden's voice lowered. "What are we supposed to do now?" "That's your question to answer," I said. He didn't say goodbye. The line went dead a second later. I set the phone down and didn't touch it again. Outside the hallway had gone quiet. No suitcases dragging, no knocking, just stillness, and the faint echo of someone finally realizing they weren't welcome by default. I walked to the window, opened it an inch, and breathed in the cold. Tomorrow I would send the envelope. I sent the envelope first thing in the morning, dropped it in the blue mailbox down the street, like it was any other errand. No ceremony, no hesitation. The manila folder was thick but organized. I wanted it to be undeniable. Macy was always the kind to twist words to call things emotional when they were simply facts. So I made sure every page was clear, dated, and impossible to reframe. The trust document came first, revised, notarized, and final. Aiden's name no longer listed as beneficiary. Then the notarized clause outlining entry rights to the apartment restricted. No verbal permissions accepted, no guest access without written consent. Next, the photo. The new keypad lock installed last month, gleaming silver with a 6-digit code I hadn't shared with anyone but Evelyn. And last, the note, written by hand. 5 words. Boundaries are not personal attacks. I didn't write a return address. I didn't need to. By the time they opened it, I imagined they were expecting an apology. Or maybe a half-hearted compromise. Some soft language to show I still cared. That I was still vulnerable. But what they got was the thing they never planned for certainty. I didn't hear from Aiden after it arrived. No calls, no texts. But a notification popped up that night, Macy blocked you. That was her answer. Not a phone call, not a conversation, just erasure. I sat by the window and let the quiet settle. No messages, no tension walking past my door. Nothing but the rustle of the oak tree outside and the faint hum of Evelyn's radio through the wall. It didn't feel like revenge. It didn't even feel like winning. It felt like stillness. They could rewrite whatever version of the story they needed to sleep at night. They could cry about the crazy mother and tell people I was controlling or cold. Let them, because for once I didn't care. I closed my phone, lit a candle, folded the last laundry load from the basket, and the next morning I moved the chair by the window. 3 weeks passed. The hallway stayed quiet. No more voices outside my door, no more unexpected arrivals, no more explanations I never should have owed. I rearranged the apartment one morning without thinking about it too much. I moved the armchair to the window, just one, not because I didn't have space for more, but because I finally understood I didn't need to make room for people who only showed up to take. The table stayed small. 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 cup for morning coffee. I kept a small stack of mail near the edge tucked beneath the plant that still leaned toward the light. The kids had sent drawings, crayon pictures of houses and suns, and squiggly handwriting that said, "Grandma," with extra loops. No return address, just stamps and silence. I put them on the fridge anyway. Aiden sent a card. No envelope, just folded printer paper with his handwriting scrawled across the front. It said, "We didn't know it was this serious." I read it once, then again, and then I set it under the tray where I keep my keys. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He hadn't asked how I was sleeping, or if I'd made it to my last appointment. He didn't mention the trust or the footage or the day I opened my door and found my life being staged like a drama for an audience I never invited. What he offered wasn't repair. It was regret dressed as surprise. So I made coffee, took it to the chair, watched the street below with the window cracked just enough to let the cold in. Evelyn stopped by twice that week. Once with a new puzzle, once with a bag of oranges. She didn't bring questions. Just time. Sometimes I think peace looks like a resolution, but really it looks like this locked door, a warm mug, a chair facing the light. I didn't build a fortress. I just stopped leaving the door open for people who never learned how to knock.